sure you're ready? Are you ready? Hey guys, welcome to Aftermath. We had a great time this morning. My two friends, Chris Wokel.
Morning.
What do we call you?
Chris Wokel. That's good.
The Colonel, right?
Okay. Yeah, you can call me Colonel. That's fine.
And Michael Campbell, our kids ministry pastor. And I'm Pastor Scott. We are missing our friend Don Bain, who normally runs the Aftermath. So for those of you who, if this is your first time, welcome to the Aftermath. Our whole goal here this morning is to clean up the mess that we just taught. That's our goal on the Aftermath, right?
Okay.
So first question I have for you guys is, why do we misinterpret? What causes us to misinterpret Scripture sometimes, or to take things out of Scripture, like out of context, things that are not there?
I think we do it unintentionally because when we read something, we want it to make sense right away. And when we encounter stuff that doesn't make sense, subconsciously we kind of fill in those blanks culturally or how we were raised or certain traditions, and we try to fill those gaps, and it allows us to see a certain perspective that the original author might not have intended. And so what we talked about today is trying to avoid that with certain tools and ways to look at Scripture.
That's really good. I think I'll also add just one thing. As human beings, I think that we like to have a final answer. We don't do well with like ambiguous, right? So sometimes we will just fill in naturally the empty spaces, maybe things that aren't said in Scripture, so that we can feel better about, right?
And we fill in those empty spaces with things we know, things we've experienced, things that we see in our culture, things that we've done, things that other people have told us. And that's part of the problem with misinterpreting, is that when there's an empty space in Scripture, what are we putting in those holes?
Yeah.
We're putting in there stuff that we think, rather than trying to understand better what was happening at the time.
And we gave a couple examples of how that happens just in our world today. You might say a word that could have 5 different meanings.
Right.
And, I used an example of something I did in a sermon. I used a word that it could have had 5 or 6 or 10 different meanings.
Right.
And people get confused by that.
Because they understand it different ways.
Right. And so, but we do the same thing when we hear words from the Scriptures.
Right.
And we have to be careful. So, Chris, we talked about 2 pillars, if you will.
Yeah.
On 2 of 4 pillars that we're going to utilize as we go through this entire book, this entire series, that helps us study Scripture and be consistent in the way that we do it.
And the 2 we discussed today were that the Bible is a library, not a book. And the Bible was written for us, but not to us.
Yes. So the Bible is not just one book. We've said that for so many years, right? Like, this is the best book ever written.
That's right.
And it's not a book.
It's a good book.
Right.
It's the holy book.
John, our friend, just photobombed us. So it's a book.
It's a library of books.
Oh, okay. So it's
a
not
library
a
of
book.
books. In fact, there's poetry in there. There's law. There's history. There's different genres of books. 66 of them, in fact.
And Biblia, Bible, means multiple, plural
books. That's right.
Yeah.
So we need to think of our Bible as a collection of different kinds of books.
And the reason that's important is because there's a common story threaded through the entire 66 books, which everything points to Jesus. That's the whole point of...
That's pillar number 4.
Right. And so we need to keep that in mind. And so how do we apply this to our lives? Like, Michael, what are some things that we can do practically as we read Scripture this week?
For practically, I think, 1, pray for understanding as we enter Scripture, saying, God, this may be difficult as I enter into this, so help me by your wisdom and grace. Like, how can I understand this? But then if we get to the end and we still don't, pray again. But then there's also other resources and tools we can use, like study Bibles and commentaries, other books, pastors, people you're close to be able to get different perspectives on a text.
Yeah. Good. All right, guys, 2 things as we read Scripture. The Bible is a series of books. It's a library, not one single book. And the second thing is that the Bible was written for us, not to us. It was written to the people at the time it was written. And then in general, now we can say this is for us, but not to us. And that will help us as we read Scripture, especially the really hard parts of Scripture that are confusing, or there's a lot of gray, or it may be written in a way that we just don't understand. And so that these two practical pillars will help us as we read Scripture to not misinterpret or take Scripture out of context. So next week, guys, we're going to go with the other two, the number 3 and 4 pillars. And then after that, we're going to just start going into some pretty big topics.
The prickly topics.
Right, like women in ministry. Is it older through younger?
Racism, slavery, genocide.
Right.
Tough topics.
And did Jesus ride a dinosaur?
Did Jesus ride a dinosaur? I can't wait to get to that.
So, guys, have a great week, and we hope to see you here too, or join our live stream. If you want to know how to do that, go to our website and go to the Grace Men's page, and there you'll find a very easy little click that you can do to get to our live stream on Wednesday morning. So we'll hope to see you here live or on live stream as well. Have a great week, guys.
Take care.